Okay, let me share my PowerPoint. Thank you for that introduction very much. So yeah, can everybody hear me okay? Sounds good, perfect. I'm gonna put you guys up in the corner. So yes, as was already said, my name is Katie Fiorillo. I'm a first year MDP student, currently serving as the Director of Programs and Development at Agroforestry, where I connected to that organization while working as a Peace Corps volunteer in Uganda. So I am a aspiring forester. I currently have no technical knowledge, so you'll forgive me if I just can't answer some of the more technical forestry questions. But my work is mostly around development, so fundraising and grant writing, and then the program side with program management and monitoring and evaluation tools. So this presentation is titled Planning a Field Practicum to Analyze the Social and Economic Impact of Rural Agroforestry in Northern Uganda. So this presentation I think is going to be a little different than previous Tropilunch presentations in that it is not necessarily talking about research. This is sort of before the research, and the objectives of this presentation is to introduce you guys to the host organization, which is Agroforestry, sort of review the programming and systems that are already in place, and then discuss how all of that can be leveraged for potential avenues for quality field practicum. So again, this is not research, it is a field practicum. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the MDP program, the field practicum is where we find a host organization in a geography we're interested in working, select a development problem that we want to address, identify a set of goals and objectives, and then design and implement strategies to pursue such goals. So they like to say that we're basically just a free development consultant for 10 to 12 weeks, trying to help our host organizations solve some problems that they have, whatever that may be. So all field practicums look a little different. So this is on the front end in the planning phase of our field practicum. And I wanted to take this opportunity just to sort of pick everyone's brain as part of this group of good strategies that they've used in their field research. I want this to be a collaborative presentation, so feel free to unmute yourselves and say something. I can't really see the chat box, but I'm told that that'll be monitored and brought in. But if anyone wants to unmute, if they have a question or raise your hand or what have you, please, I don't want to talk for 45 minutes straight by myself. Awesome. So first things first is we are going to talk about, let me jump over to Chrome really quick. I'm going to share just a quick video on Agroforestry. So this is just a quick 1.5 minute introduction to the organization. I hope you guys can hear it okay.
Needs heroes, and we found some in northern Uganda, where local communities are growing stronger and being transformed by planting millions of trees. Trees hold the power to break the cycle of poverty and create wealth for rural farmers, and we are helping make this happen. Agroforestry has established sustainable nursery hubs in rural communities that provide agroforestry trainings, tools, and seedlings. By implementing our innovative ecosystem, farmers will be growing food alongside of trees to establish long-term income and wealth. Trees, just like all living organisms, need TLC to grow and thrive, which is why we work alongside our heroes to ensure a seedling survives the crucial first 2 years. Without this extra attention, the majority of trees don't survive, and the long-term impact is lost and efforts are wasted. These heroes are incentivized to ensure their seedlings survive, and that those trees will change both the physical and economic landscape of their communities for good, and we'll have the proof to show. Partnering with Kijani leverages our vast network in Uganda and years of on-the-ground experience to impact thousands of shareholder farmers. Through our nursery hubs, we're growing a new generation of nature's heroes. But we can't and don't want to do it alone. So let's partner together and grow a better future.
Okay, let me jump back to our PowerPoint presentation. So that was just a little bit about Kajani, where I currently work. It is like my heart and soul. I love it so much. And as you saw in those videos, it was founded in 2018 by 2 Americans and a Ugandan based in northern Uganda. So our headquarters is in the city of Gulu. In 2020, we planted around 120,000 trees in Gulu district through partner farmers. We have a memorandum of understanding with the district government there. And based on the success of our first year, we've been asked to expand to 7 additional districts to the east at the request of local government leaders there. So our partnership with local government has been absolutely critical to our success, and building and maintaining those relationships is a critical key activity for continued sustainability and scaling. Can you guys still hear me okay? Got some feedback for a second. There we go. So we are based out of the north of Uganda for many reasons. This map is sourced from the National Forestry Authority of Uganda, and you can see the forest cover in green in 1990 versus 2015. So deforestation is rampant. There's only an estimated 8% of forest cover left, and some say that there will be no trees left in the next 15 years. This is due to a lot of different reasons, including agricultural extensification, so clearing of forests for more land for agriculture, as well as increased in population size and increased urbanization. And when there's increased urbanization, there's a higher need for charcoal and fuel wood and construction materials, etc. There's also the presence in the north of several 100,000 refugees from South Sudan and the Congo, mostly South Sudanese refugees in the north, but you can see the size of some of these camps are huge. Bidi, I think, is the 2nd largest refugee camp in the world. And these camps lead to a lot of deforestation to meet the fuel needs and timber needs of the camps. So Kajani saw a problem with this system in place. 94% of Ugandans rely on unsustainably sourced fuel wood. So essentially, most people there are cooking, heating their water, etc., on either charcoal or firewood. Electricity is extremely unreliable. So electric stoves are a no-go. Power is also really expensive. Propane is really expensive. It's a really high one-time cost. So that has not really taken off either. So most people are relying on charcoal or firewood. So charcoal tends to be in more urban areas and it's purchased, versus firewood in more rural areas and it's gathered. So around 500,000 acres of forest are cut down every year in Uganda just to meet the fuel wood needs. And with the increase in urbanization and the decrease in the availability of forest cover, the charcoal prices have increased 180% in the last 6 years. So Kajani is looking at this problem through sustainable charcoal production. So the more conventional or common approach that's seen to address this problem is improved cook stoves. We have not found improved cook stoves to be very effective in Uganda. We conducted a very informal quick survey with 750 of our partner farmer households. I think 0% are using improved cook stoves. Many had never heard of them, but those that had did not express interest in using them, and no one wanted to pay for them. So Kajani wants to sort of take the onus off of the end user to get more from their fuel wood and go towards the production end. So can we produce it more efficiently? So we've using local materials, local resources, and local knowledge have created a way of making charcoal more efficiently. So there are sort of 4 components to Kajani's like theory of change or our hypothesis of how we are solving the deforestation for the fuelwood problem. So currently, most tree nurseries are located in more urban settings, and the transport costs are really high for rural farmers to access those inputs. Transportation also leads to a lower survival rate of the seedlings, just being transported on a truck in the heat and the sun and what have you leads to much lower survival rate. So the first aspect of our approach is decentralized rural tree nursery hubs. We establish these nurseries on land that is donated by the community to increase access to high quality agroforestry inputs. So the community provides the labor in the packing of the seed and sapling bags. As you can see in this photo, those are bags being packed with a mixture of soil for the seedlings to be planted in, as well as the community provides labor for the construction of the nursery, seed collection, and then management of the nursery. We provide all materials and technical expertise through the second component of our approach, which is our community-based agroforestry trainer. Our staff live permanently in that community, so they're always available to provide support and can conduct a more thorough and consistent follow-up of monitoring both the nursery and the trees once they're planted. So we follow our trees from cradle to grave, we like to say, with our improved charcoal technology. So an improvement on the local method, and it's actually a kiln that's portable on the back of a motorcycle. Our kiln produces 80% more charcoal from the same amount of wood, and it's pretty easy to learn. We can train local farmers on it for them to use themselves, or we can buy the trees from them and we produce it ourselves. This means more charcoal from less trees with less waste. We also provide farmers access to urban markets through our charcoal distribution and sales sites in Gulu and Kampala. So Gulu being the major city in the north that we're headquartered out of, Kampala being the major city of the entire country. And with charcoal prices being sky high and going up every day, as a company, Kajani is still able to make a profit, which ensures that our operations are financially sustainable, or eventually will be, we hope, while also giving our partner farmers better prices and access to markets, so helping them diversify their income as well. So we plan to scale our impact through our nursery hub system, and we theorize that this will protect existing old growth forests by planting new ones, and that improved charcoal technology will create a more sustainable source of fuel wood. Does anyone have any questions so far? I don't want to go too fast, so feel free to unmute, let me know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Who owns the land that most of these trees are planted on?
Yeah, actually, that's a question we get almost every time I talk about this, so I should have mentioned that. So we do not own the land, the farmers own the land. So we establish our nursery hubs on community donated land, but they have ownership of the trees, and then they plant on their own land. They plant in a sort of assortment of strategies. So some are intercropping, alley cropping with other crops. Some are just planting sort of boundaries. A lot of land demarcation is not super accurate or disputed between neighbors of, hey, my acre ends there, that's not yours, or that, what have you. So boundary planting, or just straight up tree plantation style, rows of trees. And the individual farmers own those trees. And the idea is that when they are ready to be harvested, and we harvest through coppicing, so we plant trees that can be coppiced, meaning they are cut at about 1 meter high, so their trunk and root system remains intact in the ground, and we harvest the top, and then it regrows from that existing root structure, often with more biomass. So it leads to more biomass potential for charcoal, and it grows a lot faster. So instead of a 4-year growth cycle, it's 2 to 3 years. So the idea is that the community, we're signing contracts with them, and, you know, we don't want to force them to sell to us, but we also want to ensure that we can be financially sustainable to be able to source. The idea is that we're sourcing our wood for our charcoal production from them. They're our outgrowers, but we also aren't going to like take anyone to court or penalize anyone if they decide to cut down the trees for their own needs, if they have it in the meantime. We want to create an incentive structure by, showing how much more money they can make by selling the trees to us in the future through our access to charcoal markets, because a lot of these places are super rural and don't have physical access at all to the more lucrative markets. We initially did a survey and almost no one is selling to urban markets themselves. They're mostly going through middlemen and mostly going individually. So we're hoping the economic incentive and benefit will ensure that they sell the trees to us. But we don't own the land. We don't own the trees as they're growing them. It's a great question, though. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Not yet. All right. So the impact of our nursery hubs, we have an agreement with just the Gulu district government to plant 5 million trees over the next 5 years. And as I said, we're expanding to 7 other districts. This past year, we planted 120,000 trees in Gulu with 700 farmers, and we plan to plant 2 million trees in 2021 across the 7 districts. We are theorizing an 850% increase in income. This is based off of once the trees are sort of cycling through based off charcoal earning potential, but also increased access to market. And we are piloting a few more avenues of market access, given that we have the infrastructure of our trucks, et cetera, to also offer crop, just like maize or rice or what have you, offering to be not the middleman, but increasing access for other crops outside of the tree crops. So we're theorizing an 850% increase in income based on most of our farmers right now are farming for subsistence and make less than like $100 annually. And we are planting 2,000 trees annually, with each household, including fruit, fuelwood, and livestock fodder trees. So we are heavily emphasizing the fuelwood trees, the ones that regrow after coppicing, but we also offer fruit trees like avocado, mango, jackfruit, based on community interest and community request, as well as trees that have shown to be good livestock fodder so that we can be offering multiple benefits with our trees. We also are piloting several different intercropping pairings to be increasing soil quality and therefore higher crop yields. And the reason that we do 2,000 trees per year is to sort of stagger the planting with each household so that farmers can A, prove that they can keep the trees alive before we plant like 20,000 trees with one person and then find out they're like not super serious. And if the planting is staggered, the harvesting is staggered, which means that the income is also staggered. So it creates a more reliable and sustainable source of income every year instead of, harvesting them all at once, which is really high on labor costs as well. And then you have a high income for 1 year and then have nothing the next year. So the summary of all of that is that Kajani believes with quality inputs, access to knowledge, ongoing support, and market guarantee, communities will engage in agroforestry activities and see social, economic, and environmental benefits from our work. So if everyone would like to get their annotate tool ready, this is going to be a little participatory, but I want you just really quick on the next slide, tell me what you think trees are good for. So feel free to start annotating. Give you 30 seconds. I wish I had Jeopardy music going. And if anyone needs help annotating, if you go to the top where it says you're viewing my screen, you click the bottom, the arrow looking down, and it should be an option under there. Awesome, some really good ones. Okay, so we have a few: carbon sequestration for sure, water conservation, shade for intercropping, home for wildlife, erosion. I love a good aesthetic tree, so of course, and some livestock food. Awesome, and mental health benefits for sure. All right, we're gonna go ahead and clear that. Why can't I see this? There we go. Clear. All right, and I am stuck. Hold on a second. I lost my mouse. Why did that happen? There we go. All right, we are back. So Kajani theorizes that trees are good for fuel wood, firewood, charcoal to cook. You're able to boil safe drinking water. You guys got a lot of these: sort of shade, fodder for livestock, forest food, so fruits and nuts, boundary planning, soil erosion, adding nutrients back into the soil, especially nitrogen fixing trees, timber poles for construction, as well as biodiversity and animal habitat. So based on this, what do you guys think are benefits of agroforestry specifically? So annotate again. Yeah, increased yields, higher biomass. Awesome. Yeah, sustainable food sources, increased food security, more efficient land use, crop diversity, income generation. Absolutely. Yeah, these are all things that fit very well into that. So we're gonna go ahead and clear and see if I can figure out how to do this again. Here we go, much easier this time. So yeah, Kajani thinks that agroforestry systems specifically lead to more sustainable fuel wood. We also are theorizing that the alleviation of time scarcity usually spent gathering fuel wood will lead to better gender equity outcomes. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the next few slides. But increased crop yields, emphasizing that it's when paired properly. Obviously, not all tree species are created equal when looking at intercropping pairings, and some can take up more water or more nutrients and not provide a mutual symbiotic relationship, but create more diverse income sources, sequester carbon, and improve soil health, among many others. We love trees. Trees are great. So within the why is agroforestry important, and how does this relate to what our farmers are doing? So when looking at the drivers of agricultural intensification, which is needed to increase the productivity of land as land is becoming more scarce in Uganda, due to population density and distribution, there's a need to increase the productivity of land, also based off of sort of a transition from subsistence to meeting the urban market's need for food and agricultural products. All of this needs a lot of technological factors to be put into play, which Kajani is trying to help with by introducing agroforestry as an intensification technique. As well as we have to sort of grapple with public attitudes, values, and beliefs, and individual and household behavior about agroforestry and at a greater level, climate change, which we are targeting through our smallholder, more subsistence farmers around the production of fuel wood and charcoal production. And all of this is being sort of affected by these other factors. So specifically in Gulu, northern Uganda, was recently had a 20-year civil war with the Lord's Resistance Army, and 95% of that district was actually internally displaced for several years. So just getting back to their land, being comfortable in their land, dealing with the shock of the horror that they went through, as well as now dealing with more droughts, floods, and pests. I don't know if anyone has seen the locust cloud that's just over East Africa right now, as well as a changing land characteristics, forest fragmentation, and soil quality. All of those factors are in Uganda impacting the cultural beliefs around climate change, and more that is becoming at the forefront of people's concerns as they see the changing weather patterns and the changing climate and how it's really impacting their farming. Does anyone have any questions so far? Nope. All right. Well, you might be asking, what is the director
I have a
of?
question.
Yes, of course.
Hi, Katie. Could I ask you?
Hi.
Could you just describe the typical land holding? In other words, how much land do people have? Is it very hilly? Is it fertile, infertile? What are their, is it like, for example, I worked in a place in Bahia, Brazil, and I can tell you that the land is 75% in agroforestry systems, 8% in natural forest. The land holdings are very small.
Yeah.
Fertile land. So just because you want to insert agroforestry into the current system, I just wanted to know a little bit more about what the current system is. Thank you.
Definitely. That is a great question. Thank you so much. So it was really interesting, actually. I worked, I can even just show really quick on this slide. So this is sort of the area where we're working. I previously worked, they mentioned Miss Cindy, so I worked down here. And it was close to, this is all a protected area, national park right here, and I worked just below it. And the land size and the land fragments were teeny, teeny, tiny. There was also a huge sugarcane plantation there, and it was impacting the size of land available in Western Uganda. It's closer to like 0.5 to 1 acre per person. However, there's also a lot more population density in this area than there is up here. So we've found that the average land size available is upwards of 5 to 10 acres per household. So the land sizes are bigger in northern Uganda, but obviously that's impacted in different places wherever you are, context specific in Uganda especially. So it's less dense population up here, so larger fragments because of not as many people. And it also is fairly flat. Southwestern Uganda is super, super hilly. Eastern Uganda is super, super hilly. Northern Uganda is flat as a pancake. So it's pretty flat. It's more bushland right now, but is that from deforestation or is that the natural habitat? I mean, obviously you can see it used to have a lot more forest cover. So there is a sizable, there are sizable fragments available. And a lot of it is not being utilized necessarily for agricultural systems. I don't want to call it idle land because it's serving an ecosystem purpose, but there's more potential for it to be productive for humankind purposes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I guess the people are living pretty much off the land, they don't have a farm income.
No,
and their main crops are, did you say corn and rice?
Not rice so much in this area. Sorry, I misspoke. Maize, some soya, beans, cassava, kind of your staple crops. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do they use fertilization or is it shifting agriculture pretty much?
So not a lot of fertilizer just because it is expensive. Mm-hmm. It's out of reach, economically speaking. So not a lot of fertilizer use, no. Yeah. And it is mostly subsistence farming. They're eating what they can grow and not able to really sell it without access to a market. So incomes are extremely, extremely low.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. let me get back through all of our pretty pictures. So as a director of development, why am I talking to you about all this agricultural stuff? Let's talk the money behind organizations and enterprises like this. So the gold standard, the verified carbon standard, carbon trade exchange, all of these are carbon credit markets that Kajani is a social enterprise. So we raised around $350,000 in angel investment to fund our first year until we are more financially sustainable from charcoal production. We also wanted to explore, we have a nonprofit arm as well, and there's a lot of interest in this area, right, of carbon offsets, etc. However, this stuff is so expensive. I probably spent the better part of the summer looking at how to get Kajani verified on the carbon credit market. There's a lot of comparable projects that we've seen, and we think we have a really compelling case. A lot of the carbon credits are through improved cook stoves, and we're just farther up that production chain. However, it's about $60,000 just to get verified, and then the continuous verification is just crazy. However, even within this space, there is a lot of interest in looking beyond the carbon with impact investing. So there's a growing interest in understanding what is behind just that carbon credit and what are other social and economic gains in each of these projects. Investors are wanting more multi-dimensional, multi-sectoral outcomes to purchase. And this is based on conversations that Kajani's been having with people at the World Economic Forum and partners like P&G, Procter & Gamble. So part of that was taking a hard look at our program and trying to understand how do we fit into the Sustainable Development Goals, and being a master's of sustainable development practice, this fit in very well. And we actually theorize, whether directly or indirectly, that we are touching at least these starred SDGs. So no poverty being creating more economic income for families through the agricultural systems they're already employing, zero hunger by increasing food security, by increasing land productivity. Quality education is an interesting one. In Uganda, oftentimes kids are responsible for bringing all of the firewood and fuel wood to their school for the school cooks to cook on. And several times we've seen that school is let out for the day, so kids can go fetch firewood for 3 hours and then come back with the firewood. So looking at how is that disrupting education systems, and how is having an unsustainable source of fuel wood and firewood for cooking affecting the quality of education. And also looking very similarly at the gender equality implications of that. Oftentimes it is women and children that are doing the fetching of the firewood. So the time scarcity and time poverty that comes with that. Clean water and sanitation, obviously boiling all of your water to be able to drink it requires fuel wood, leading to the affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, looking at the whole sector and making it more sustainable through responsible consumption and production, and obviously climate action and life on land, trying to make the world a greener place. All of this is trying to be quantified. So this is sort of my ambitious, I'm realizing as I'm saying this right now, goal for the summer is to look at creating a system that can more accurately capture and quantify the benefits that Kajani is having beyond our carbon sequestration. So to better understand this, we're going to take a look at the journey a farmer has with Kajani. So it starts with an initial survey of interest and capacity by our field coordinator that lives in the community. Actually, we're currently, as we speak, expanding to 7 new districts, like I mentioned earlier, and that involves several weeks of community mobilization and integration and understanding, surveys of groups, and then surveys of individuals within those groups who are interested. So then after an initial survey and assessment of capacity and interest, We establish a tree nursery with them, as I've already detailed, and conduct our agroforestry trainings along with seedling care. Then that leads to actually planting the trees, followed by periodic follow-up by our community coordinator to monitor tree growth. That is obviously taking place over a few years. Trees, unfortunately, take a little bit of time to grow. And then increased crop yield, we hope in the more short term, but obviously the impact on soil does take a long time as well. And then the growth of trees that can be coppiced and then lead to charcoal production or fuel wood production, which we are theorizing leads to increased economic opportunity, increased environmental benefit, and increased social outcomes like gender equity. So currently our monitoring and evaluation system includes GPS tracking of our tree plots. So we do have boundary outline KML files of the individual farmers' plots of land. We just have our coordinators walk the perimeter of where they're planting and then input some data on the density at which it's being planted. Is it intercropped? Is it solely tree planting? Is it boundary, etc.? And then we are hoping, this would be super cool, to use drone deploy to track forest cover over time as well as we are expanding. And then we use Kobo Toolbox mobile data collection, household survey to collect our baseline demographics, income level and sources, and land availability. So my practicum will be spending the summer with Kajani to really develop and refine our contextual framework for our programming and how to understand how to use the quantitative data that we are already collecting to inform our decision making, as well as utilize more qualitative methods to capture more of the social benefits of the program, and then hopefully combining these into a mixed method approach of an operationalizable monitoring and evaluation system that is remote data collection, low bandwidth, mobile friendly, easily used by our field coordinators who are often English as a second language or their third, fourth, or fifth language, and that enables us to maintain quality while we scale. So, based on everything I just said, what are things that you might recommend for data collection, for program management, and impact evaluation?